People always say staying with your in-laws is just a stopgap, a short-term stage before true independence. But 3 years later, our temporary had begun to rot. I'm Bianca, 42, a senior data analyst at a Seattle tech firm. My husband, Felix, is 43. When we first met, he was bold and outspoken. Now his voice is softer, especially when it comes to his older sister, Samantha. We had moved into his parents' house to save for a down payment. That was the plan. But plans tend to stretch when they suit everyone else's comfort. Especially Samantha, who had never moved out. Then came Elise, our miracle baby, born after 14 long years of trying. You'd expect a new child to bring warmth into the home. But with Samantha living just down the hall, that warmth never reached us. One Tuesday night, I got home a little after 7. I kicked off my heels at the door, greeted by Dean, my father-in-law, who had Elise in his arms and a weary smile on his face. "Rough day?" he asked. I kissed Elise's forehead and exhaled. Never ending. Dean carefully handed her over. On the couch, Samantha was curled up with her laptop and blanket. "Working late again?" she asked, pretending to sound concerned. "You sure you're not mistaking motherhood for outsourcing?" "Sam," Dean warned. She shrugged and returned to her screen. Felix still wasn't home. He texted from his car, stuck in traffic on I-5. Lately, that had become routine. Samantha wandered into the kitchen, humming to herself. I sat at the dining table with Elise, trying to unwind. Then came her voice again. "You left some shopping bags in the mudroom. Want me to make sure you didn't buy anything, unnecessary?" I followed her to the hallway and found her already peeking inside. I had picked up a few essentials during lunch. Formula, wipes, and a discounted baby monitor Felix had been wanting. She held up the box. "Seriously? A baby cam? What is this, a CIA nursery?" "It's for Felix," I said, reaching for it. "He wants to check in on Elise while we're at work." Her eyes narrowed. "What a waste. Maybe if you were home more, your baby wouldn't need surveillance." Before I could respond, she shoved the box back into the bag, too hard. It hit the floor, denting at the corner. Elise startled in my arms. "Watch it," I snapped. She raised her brows. "Touchy." I picked up the bag and walked past her without another word. That night, Felix got home after 9. Elise was asleep. Samantha was in her room. Dean and I were in the kitchen cleaning up. She dropped the monitor. I explained. Felix frowned, inspecting the box. "Not broken, just scuffed. Can you set it up tomorrow?" "Of course." He hesitated. "Sorry, she said stuff again, didn't she?" "I'm used to it," I lied. He gave me a weary half-smile before disappearing into the shower. I carried the monitor upstairs and tucked it into the drawer where we kept important things. Passports, documents, our joint savings account debit card. My eyes lingered on the envelope where the card rested. Still there. I closed the drawer and let out a breath. 2 nights later, Samantha made her announcement. We were all having dinner together, a rare peaceful evening. Elise cooed in her bouncer. Dean served spaghetti. Felix poured wine. "I bought a condo," Samantha said suddenly, as casually as if she'd bought a new jacket. Silence. Felix blinked. "Wait, what?" "A 1-bedroom in Bellevue. Lots of light. Close to cafes. I'm moving this weekend." Dean nearly dropped the serving spoon. "Sam, you didn't even tell us you were looking." "Last-minute choice," she replied breezily. "Just felt like it was time." Felix and I exchanged a glance but said nothing. Samantha turned to me. "Don't worry. I won't intrude on your nursery dreams anymore. I'm officially out of your hair." She raised her glass. "To fresh starts." That night, I barely slept. Something felt off. Samantha hadn't held a steady job in years. She freelanced here and there, but mostly leaned on her parents for rent and groceries. How could she suddenly afford property? The next morning, Felix left early, another meeting in Bellevue. Elise napped, and I decided to finally set up the baby monitor. I opened the drawer upstairs. The monitor box was there, but the envelope with the debit card wasn't. I froze. Pulled out every file folder. Nothing. Checked my work tote, the closet, Felix's nightstand, even the safe in Dean's office. Gone. My stomach turned cold. That card linked to our joint savings. Nearly $230,000 saved over 10 years. Every bonus, every late night, every vacation we'd sacrificed. That money was our future. And now it was missing. I rushed downstairs and found Dean in the garage with his drill press. "Dean," I said, forcing my voice steady. "Have you seen the savings account card? The one we keep upstairs." He looked up sharply. "No. You two don't use it often, right? Only for major expenses." "Exactly. We haven't touched it since we got approved for the new house." His expression darkened. "Bianca, how much is in that account right now?" 230, I whispered. "Thousand." He stepped back. "We need to call Felix." I dialed immediately. Felix picked up on the third ring, still in traffic. "What's going on?" he asked. "The savings card is missing," I said slowly. Silence. "I've checked everywhere," I continued. "The drawer, my tote, the closet. It's not here." Still nothing. "We need to call the bank," I pressed. "Maybe even the police." Finally, his voice came through, strained, almost breaking. "Wait, just hold off for a second, okay? I'll be home soon. Don't do anything yet." "What?" I asked. "Felix, what's happening?" "I'm getting off the freeway now. Just wait for me." Then he hung up. 15 minutes after my call, Felix stormed through the front door as if he expected the place to already be burning down. His tie was still knotted, his shirt wrinkled, his face pale and slick with sweat. "Where's Elise?" he panted. "Asleep," I snapped. "Still perfectly safe, in case you were wondering. Not like our savings." Dean stood silently behind me in the living room, arms crossed tight, lips pressed into a rigid line. He hadn't spoken since I discovered the missing card, but the tension rolling off him was almost electric. Felix's eyes darted from his father to me. "Look, please, don't do anything drastic." "Too late," I shot back. "I already called the bank. The card's frozen. I also reported it stolen." He flinched. "You already?" "I was about to call the police too," I cut in. "But I thought I'd give you one chance to explain how my card went missing the very same night your sister magically came up with the cash for a condo." Felix raked a hand through his hair. "Bianca, I didn't mean for it to spiral like this." Dean stepped forward, his voice edged with quiet menace. "Felix, did Samantha take the money?" Felix looked away, jaw tight. After a beat, he gave a small nod. "I didn't hand her the card," he muttered. "But she asked for the PIN." "And you gave it to her?" Dean's voice dropped even lower. Felix's head sagged like it was too heavy to hold up. "She said she just needed to check something. Then she said maybe Elise wasn't in the safest home." My breath caught. "She threatened CPS?" "She never said it outright," Felix whispered. "But she hinted that Elise cries too much. That we're both working full-time. That it wouldn't take much for someone to get suspicious." "You believed her?" I asked, stunned. "I was scared," he murmured. "Scared of Samantha," I said, my voice rising. "But not scared that you handed her access to our daughter's future?" Dean turned away, rubbing his forehead as though trying to push back a migraine. Felix stood silent, ashamed. I suddenly remembered the monitor. I bolted upstairs, yanked the baby monitor from the wall mount, and brought it down. Felix had set it up last week, angled perfectly to watch Elise's bassinet, and incidentally, the drawer beside it where we kept the debit card. It saved footage to the cloud. I opened the app on my phone and began scrolling. Both Dean and Felix stayed quiet, waiting. Then I found it. A recording timestamp 2:42 a.m. that very night. I pressed play. On the screen, Samantha slipped into the room in a hoodie and sweatpants, tiptoeing across the carpet. She opened the drawer, pulled out the envelope, and took the card. Then she grabbed her phone. A moment later, Felix appeared in the doorway. "Sam, what are you doing?" he whispered. "I need the PIN." "No, this is too much." Her voice dropped, but the monitor caught it anyway. "You two are gone all day. That baby screams for hours. Wouldn't take much for someone to raise a red flag. Felix, do you want Elise taken from you?" He stayed silent. "Give me the code. I'll just use what I need and pay it back. No one has to know." Felix hesitated, torn. Then he stepped forward and whispered something. She smiled. Thanks, little brother. The video ended. Dean slumped back like the air had been knocked out of him. She manipulated you, he said softly. Felix nodded, shame written all over his face. I thought if I gave her the code, she'd stop. I never thought she'd drain everything. I didn't know she'd. I raised a hand to cut him off. We're not finished. I pulled up another recording, timestamp 6:38 a.m. The screen showed Samantha again, this time with a coffee cup in hand. Elise was awake, cooing softly in her bassinet. Samantha leaned over her. Elise reached up with her tiny hand. Samantha slapped it away, then tapped her chest. Not hard, but deliberate. Elise whimpered. Samantha hissed, "Shut up already," and walked out. Felix clapped a hand over his mouth. Dean muttered something too low for me to catch. I stood. I'm calling the police. No one tried to stop me. 20 minutes later, an officer arrived. He took our statements, reviewed the recordings twice, and made the call. She gained access through coercion, possibly fraud. And we now have clear evidence of child abuse. We'll escalate. Dean added. If she tries another withdrawal, the system will flag it. She's supposed to move into a condo in Bellevue today. If she used those funds as a down payment, then we can push for a financial investigation, the officer finished. If the purchase was made with stolen money, it can be challenged. An hour later, Dean's phone rang. He answered, listened, then hung up and looked at us. They got her. Samantha had gone to a downtown ATM and tried to pull out $9,500 in cash. The frozen card triggered the lock. She screamed, kicked the machine, shoved a bank employee. Police were called immediately. She was arrested for attempted fraud, vandalism, and assault. When we arrived at the station to file the formal complaint, we saw her through the glass in the interview room, disheveled, pacing like a trapped animal. She spotted us and sneered. Seriously? You called the cops on me? Your own family? Felix looked at her, broken. You hit my daughter. Samantha scoffed. Oh please. You're both overreacting. That baby whines nonstop. A little tap isn't a crime. I stepped forward. It is when it's caught on camera. An officer walked in, handed her a folder. Charges include child endangerment, financial fraud, and battery. This is a full investigation. Fraud, she barked. Felix gave me the code. The account's in his name. I gave her a cold smile. No, Samantha. It was a joint account by law, and the instant the card disappeared, I filed a fraud alert. Her jaw dropped. Dean added, You're not walking away from this. Not again. Samantha didn't shed a tear during booking. Instead, she raged. She yelled at the officer reading the charges, stomped the bench when they took her shoes, and snarled at us across the hallway as they marched her into holding. You think you've won? I'll be out in an hour. I'll sue every one of you. This is harassment. I stayed silent. So did Dean. But Felix, he looked pale, like the life had drained from him. When we got home, Elise slept peacefully in her crib, blissfully unaware of the storm her aunt had stirred. Felix sat beside her, limp, staring into nothing. I let this happen, he whispered at last. I let her do this. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to tell him he was right, that years of silence had only fueled Samantha's cruelty and greed. But I looked at Elise's small chest rising and falling and finally said softly, You can let guilt consume you, or you can put an end to it. Decide. The fallout came quicker than expected. Within 2 days, detectives confirmed Samantha had used our frozen account to apply for a condo loan. Her name was on the paperwork, but the bank hadn't finalized the mortgage because of the flagged funds and ongoing investigation. The down payment had been wired from our account only hours before the freeze, which legally meant she had committed fraud. The charges stacked fast: financial fraud, coercion, blackmail, child endangerment, battery, attempted vandalism, property damage at an ATM, and assault for shoving a bank employee. Her public defender tried to frame it as a family feud, but the surveillance footage ruined that defense, especially the recording of her striking Elise. At a private family meeting, Dean made the final call. We all sat in the kitchen, the same one where Samantha once drank wine and mocked me for working late. Dean sat at the head of the table, hands folded, voice calm but unshakable. I've let Samantha get away with far too much, he said. Since childhood, I bailed her out, paid off her debts, cleaned up her chaos, thinking I was protecting her. I wasn't. I was enabling someone who feels no remorse. Felix wiped his face. Dean looked straight at him. From today on, I'm cutting ties, legally, emotionally. She is no longer part of this family, and she will never set foot in this house again. And Felix, if you ever allow her to threaten your wife or daughter again, I'll hold you accountable too. Felix nodded slowly. I understand. Samantha never believed the charges would hold. She expected a fine, maybe probation. Instead, bail was denied. Too many crimes in too little time. Theft, assault, fraud. The judge deemed her a flight risk. Her condo deal collapsed. The property reverted to the market, the bank reclaimed ownership, and the stolen money, slowly but surely, was returned. It took 2 long weeks. But the day the refund cleared, I stood at the kitchen sink and cried. Elise sat in her high chair, flinging cereal, while Felix came up behind me and laid his hands on my shoulders. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right, he murmured. We'll see, I said. But I didn't step away. The prosecutor offered Samantha a plea deal, a reduced sentence in exchange for admitting guilt. She refused, insisting she'd win. I'll prove Felix gave me the money willingly, she declared in court. The judge replied. Then why record yourself threatening him? She had no answer. In the end, she was sentenced to 18 months in county jail, mandatory psychological evaluation, and a 5-year restraining order keeping her away from us and Elise. To top it off, the prosecutor filed a civil clause, giving us grounds to sue for emotional and child endangerment damages. We filed immediately. The judge awarded $25,000 in punitive damages, $10,000 in compensation for Elise's trauma, and an official liability record that barred Samantha from denying guilt in the future. We never heard from her again. No apology. No attempt at contact. One day, though, Dean showed me a letter that came to the house. No return address. Inside, a single line. You ruined my life. Dean simply shrugged and fed it through the shredder. We canceled the cottage purchase we had once planned. Not because of the money, which we'd recovered, but because we realized something. Dean's presence had been the reason Elise hadn't suffered worse. He had protected her, stepped up when his own son had failed. We didn't need a new house. We needed new boundaries. So instead, we hired an architect and redesigned the property into a multi-generational home. 2 separate living spaces with independent utilities, soundproof walls, and private entrances. One side for us. One side for Dean. And the room that used to be Samantha's? We turned it into a guest nursery. Painted it soft blue. Strung fairy lights. We never shared the address with her again. Last month, Felix stood in Elise's new room, helping me hang the final framed photo of the 3 of us laughing under cherry blossoms, the same kind of tree that once grew near the cottage we didn't buy. Do you regret not moving? He asked. I looked around the peaceful room, solid and earned. No, I said. Because this time, we built something no one can take from us.